The Gerson therapy has been very long established. My father first cured cancer regularly, or the first cases he had was in the 20s, but he was able to really schematically cure cancer in the 30s, early 40s, and then through in the 50s while he was living in America. There are a number of therapies that have derived from this treatment, that have used certain portions of it. There are a number of other treatments that you may be familiar with. Those of you who are interested and have done a bit of reading on alternative treatments, I am aware of them. I know of them. Any of those treatments that fit into the philosophy of the Gerson therapy, we have adopted. We have tried virtually all. If they work, fine, we use them. If they don't work, we discard them. Same as Dr. Gerson did. And it's not much point in talking about the macrobiotic treatment and this treatment and that treatment. I know about them. We feel that with the long-established Gerson therapy, with using a few of the other additions to the treatment, we have about the most and the best and the most and best documented treatment available. If you now have background on some others, I'd like to urge you, especially if you are a patient or if you are a caregiver to a patient, don't jump around. That's one sure way to fail. Once you decide you want to do a certain therapy, do it, stay with it. And don't jump around. Try a little of this, try a little of that, and you've heard this, and you've heard that, and maybe this works, and you've heard about soy, and it doesn't work. Also, please be assured that we've tried virtually all of the things that have been out there and have been published. Okay, now let's get started on my number one subject, water. First of all, by show of hands, I think it'll be easier. Who of you was not here yesterday? Ouch. Oh, that's a lot. Thank you. In that case, let me please give a little bit, sorry for you who were here, a little bit of a background and an understanding of the treatment. The Gerson therapy is not designed to work with a lump or a bump. It is not designed to work with a specific symptom. It is not intended to relieve only symptoms. The whole idea and the whole philosophy is to first of all understand the underlying problem, and secondly deal with that problem so that all of the body systems can be restored. The body can be restored to full function, and with that to healing. Because as Dr. Gerson put it, in every body there is a healing mechanism. In chronic degenerative disease, this healing mechanism is weakened, is damaged, sometimes is poisoned, simply no longer works properly. And it should be, and it is, the duty of the doctor to reactivate, restore this healing mechanism. And that's what the whole Gerson therapy is about. It's not to poison the body. It's not to mutilate the body. It's not to treat a symptom so you feel better for a while. And please remember that every drug, there is no exception. Every drug, over-the-counter drug, medical prescribed drug, street drug, it doesn't matter. Every drug is liver toxic. Every drug causes problems, often even new diseases. So drug treatment is not for healing. It often helps to suppress some symptoms temporarily, but it never heals. With the Gerson therapy, and I'm happy to say, this was Dr. Gerson's ultimate book, The Cancer Therapy. In it are 50 cases, 48 of which were in terminal condition. Virtually all the patients we see are in terminal. They always try the original, the local cancer treatment, and the doctor first. It's only when the doctor says, well, sorry, there's no more we can do, that's when we see them in final terminal condition. Dr. Gerson too, more than 90% of his patients were in terminal condition. Of these cases, of course, the book was written and came out in 1958. That's some 4 years ago. Many of those patients were in their 50s, 60s, some even their 70s, and even though they recovered, naturally they're no longer alive. Many died in their high 70s, 80s, and some in their 90s of other diseases. But it's an interesting fact that a number of patients who were in their low 30s or late 20s or even earlier are still alive today, restored by Dr. Gerson from terminal cancer. And that's what we want to talk about, not temporary improvement with chemotherapy. Do you know when doctors talk about remission, when they talk about remission, say from chemotherapy or from whatever treatment they're giving you, cancer remission means to medical mind that your cancer has not grown for 1 month. Is that what you're working for? Not us. The Gerson therapy works in order to restore, first of all, for the body to fight and get rid of the tumor tissue, then to restore the immune system, enzyme system, hormone system, finally restore all the essential organs, the liver, kidneys, heart, especially also pancreas, brain, and so on. All the essential organ systems have to be restored. The liver, immune system, and all has to be restored so that from now on the body can maintain health. That's total healing. And it takes time. It takes time, and it's work intensive. And in order for you to understand all the things that are needed in order to deal with these very serious problems, that's what we are doing this workshop for. And you need to bear in mind, and I'll come back to this several times, the basic underlying problem of all chronic diseases can be expressed in 2 simple words: toxicity, deficiency. Toxicity from the soil and the water and the air, the pesticides, the fungicides, the food chemicals, the additives, lots and lots of different ways to put toxicity in your lives. Deficiency because the soil is deficient. It's not fertilized properly. It's fertilized with artificial fertilizer, which is 3 things: NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Well, that's very nice. But it happens that the plants and all living beings, including ourselves, we need something like 52 different minerals and nutrients. So with this NPK, so where's the calcium and the magnesium and the manganese and the iron and the iodine and on and on and on? Missing. And when the plants are deficient, the bugs come in and kill them. Nature will not stand for deficient, weak individuals. Plants, animals, or human, makes no difference. Nature steps in and gets rid of them. So the plants die. And the farmers come crying to the chemical companies, our plants are not surviving. And the chemical companies do what? They're only too happy to sell them fungicides and pesticides, and they sell them growth hormone, all kinds of things. So what's left then is a deficient soil with toxic chemicals added, and that's the plants that grow. And the plants from which you are supposed to build an active, normal, healthy body with all the nutrients. Because the nutrients you can't get from pills. There's much research now that shows the weaker, the more damaged the body, the less the pills work. So where are you going to get it? If it's not in the plants. You see, the plants are capable of taking, say, a piece of chalk, calcium, invading it with their enzymes, turning that calcium into an organic substance that now can go in your bones. The calcium, pharmaceutical calcium or other calcium or chalk, you can't eat a piece of chalk. It's calcium. That won't do anything for you. Neither will the pharmaceutical chalk. You need the plants to change these things into organic substances that now will lodge in your bones. But along with it, you need enzymes, nutrients. There's nowhere in nature where there's a mononutrient, where there's any food that has only one substance, like vitamin C. Doesn't exist. Vitamin C comes with the bioflavonoids, with the potassium, with enzymes, and then the body can use it. Okay? So that's the key. You need living food, organic, free of poison. Now this is one of the items that I generally cover as a separate subject, but I felt that you need to have this ahead of time, since if you didn't hear me yesterday, this is absolutely essential and basic. Toxicity and deficiency. You can't heal a body on deficient, toxic plants and foods. And the animals just concentrate it. And then they add hormones and they add other things, and they get cows with mad cow disease and other disease. You know, there was a story told back in the early 20th century, 1903, 4, 5, I don't know the exact date, where a man experimented in India with organically grown grass. He used only organic fertilizer, feed for his animals, his cows. And it was fenced in, and right next to it there were other lots where there were other animals that were just fed the orthodox stuff with artificial fertilizer, and those animals developed hoof and mouth disease. His animals that were fed organic food were seen nuzzling with these infected animals. They did not develop disease. They had good immune systems. And that's what we want to develop in people. Good, healthy immune system. So first of all, you can't get sick. And secondly, if you do have a problem, your body can be strengthened, rebuilt, restored, detoxified, and your body can fight the disease. That's the Gerson therapy. Does it make sense? I hope so. Because we know it works. The 50 cases, terminally ill, recovered. And this was just the beginning. When I decided to withdraw from the Gerson Institute work from the 9 to 5 at 78, I didn't need this anymore. 2 years ago, I'm now 80. When I withdrew, I decided I would put together all the cases that we had treated and all the different, collect them in a book, all the recovered patient stories. When I reached 400, I thought, who's going to read this? 400 stories? And I hadn't even gotten into the database yet of the Gerson Institute. There were hundreds more. So a book maybe with 800,000, 1,200 stories, impossible. Instead, we had many, many people calling at the Gerson Institute. They want to know how people respond to their kind of cancer, their kind of disease. So instead of putting it all in one book, I issued little booklets. And that's what these are about. Each little booklet gives a different disease. We have 5 of them ready. I have many more that are coming, but for the moment we have 5 ready and they're available at the table there. This one is on lymphoma. We have exceptionally good results with lymphoma. Melanoma, we have exceptionally good results. Then there's a booklet on breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and there's one on colon cancer with liver metastases. Yes, we have recovered patients. And pancreatic cancer. Yes, we have recovered patients. Long term. Not 6 months. 10, 12, 18 years from pancreatic cancer. There is no such thing in orthodox medicine. None. Zero. So now let's get into how to go about doing this. And it's not easy. Don't be misled with toxicity and deficiency. Okay, no toxins and no deficient. That's true. But our lives are so structured nowadays that every turn we are into toxic air, toxic water, toxic cosmetics, toxic occupations, toxic cleaning materials, toxic cosmetics. It's quite remarkable. So let's go look at this now. The first item on this subject that I'd like to talk about is water. Many of you have read health books, and most of you have been told that a normal healthy person should be drinking at least 8 glasses of water a day. This may be true. If you eat salted food, the salt has to be flushed out and bound to water to survive, for your body to survive. Secondly, protein, high protein diet. You need to flush out the kidneys because the protein caused terrible problems, the animal proteins. But the Gerson therapy says, don't drink water. Not only that, but when you're not on the therapy. Not only that, but the water itself is so unclean. It's polluted. It has all kinds of chemical damage. It's been, I hate to tell you, the London water, while in a way you're lucky it's not fluoridated, could be worse. But it has a whole lot of additives and chemicals, and even though they try to clean it, it isn't clean. The water needs to be clean. The least you have to do is go through a filter system, go through a reverse osmosis filter system, or better yet, especially if water is fluoridated, you can't remove the fluoride with filters. They go right through the membrane. You have to distill it. And that gets to be very nasty, because the distiller, either distilled water is expensive, or you get yourself your own distiller. You can make 2-3 gallons a day. You need an extra water outlet. You can't do it in your kitchen sink because then you can't use it for anything else. It's complex. It's not easy. But the water, now you're not going to drink water. So what do you use water for? When with the Gerson therapy we drink 13 glasses of juice, it's unwise to drink water. There isn't enough room. Not only that, but it is well established fact that chronic degenerative disease patients have poor stomach acid. They don't have enough. They have poor digestion, they have poor appetite, and water just dilutes this acid more. Just causes new troubles and new digestive problems. Juice, on the other hand, is food. It does not dilute the acid. Even helps to generate it. So, first of all, the first thing is, don't drink water if you do the Gerson therapy. The second thing is, if you do use water, and you'll be using water for various other things, be sure it's clean. At least filtered, or preferably yet distilled. Okay, now you will have read, and I know all about it, you will have read distilled water will leach minerals out of the body. Not true. Originally, people and animals would drink rainwater. That's distilled. The water, the minerals that are in water are inorganic, and they're very often useless, sometimes harmful. The sodium and calcium, they're not good for you. Not in inorganic form. What you want is the organic minerals that you find where in juice. Changed and converted by the plant and full of nutrients and enzymes so they can be properly lodged in the bones. But you're still going to use water, because later on we come to the question of coffee enemas. That water goes into the body. It needs to be clean. We are going to be using a special soup. To cook, you need water. In certain areas, in particular cases, we are going to use herbal teas. You need water. The water has to be clean. Other problem. If your water is fluoridated, you can't even bathe in it because you absorb a lot of fluoride through the skin. Then what do you do? It gets to be very nasty because you have to bathe. Just use some distilled water or some reverse osmosis water, warm it in a basin or sink or someplace, and do a sponge bath. And maybe once a week, soap yourself down and have a quick shower knowing full well that it's not going to do you any good. It's a nasty business, but they poison everything around you. And you mustn't put new poisons in your body. Remember, the body is toxic already and deficient. Dr. Gerson made a difference between chronic degenerative disease and cancer. Cancer is further advanced damage. But he said in chronic degenerative disease, the liver is damaged and weakened, and the defenses are damaged and weakened. In cancer, the liver is toxic. Not just weakened and damaged and deficient, but toxic, poisoned. So it becomes more and more important to detoxify and make sure that no new poisons go into the body. It's not easy. It's tough. Which also means you can't go and swim in a swimming pool. What's in a swimming pool? It's full of chlorine. Plus, the water is not all that clean. And you should not even bathe in the ocean. There's salt. Well, what's wrong with salt? Well, salt changes the whole basic biochemistry of the body. The body needs to function on an improved set of potassium. I went into that in detail yesterday. The potassium is the key mineral. And it's because we use so much salt, because we lose the potassium in our cooking and in our food processing. It's because then for flavor we add salt, 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 that we change our whole basic body chemistry. And that's the beginning of cell damage, of the cell damage syndrome, is the penetration of sodium into the cell, and then the cell binds water because sodium is poison. Sodium is poison. After my father passed away in 1959, in 1965, two researchers came out with a book called Enzymes. And in the book they showed that in order for the body to produce enzymes, it uses certain minerals and certain materials as activating substances. And the activating substances in almost all cases that they examined of the body's production of enzymes, there are many, 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 was potassium. Catalyst was potassium. And in almost all cases, the inhibiting substance, the defeating substance, was sodium, salt. But the definition of poison is enzyme inhibitor. And they showed that sodium was an enzyme inhibitor. Now, all of your body processes from the moment you breathe. How do you think that oxygen goes into every cell in your body and produces energy? It's tied first, it has to go through the lung tissue. And then the oxygen gets carried by the red blood cells through into the tiny capillaries and gets released at the cell through the cell membrane with the help of enzymes. Everything helps with the help of enzymes. None of these things happen without enzymes. Then it goes into the cell and combines with starches, sugars, nutrients to produce energy, enzymes. Then the cell gets rid of it, enzymes. It gets tied back to the blood system, which now carries it through the liver. The liver filters out the toxic substances, enzymes, and gets rid of it by passing it out through the bile and the stool, enzymes. There are hundreds of enzymes being produced and being needed by all your body functions all the time. And enzyme inhibitors are toxic, and that's the danger. Also with salt. Whether it's now table salt or sea salt, and you've read about how wonderful sea salt is, it's still salt. Well, if you take, let's say, arsenic, and you combine arsenic with something useful, still arsenic. So sea salt, while it's salt, may have some other minerals in it. True, it does. That doesn't make it harmless. The salt is still there and still causes problems. So don't let people talk you into, you have to have sea salt. Not true. I was raised from the time I was born, a baby. I was raised without salt. Never eat salt. Never. So if I needed salt, would I be alive? I make it a studied thing never to eat anything that has salt added. I never eat processed foods. Every processed food has salt added. Never. Salt is needed for tumor growth. Salt penetrates the tissues after the body loses its capability of getting rid of it and causes the famous tissue damage syndrome. Salt is a tremendous offender. In order to grow cancer, you need sodium, excess fat, and animal proteins. So you certainly want to eliminate salt. And you say, well, it doesn't have any flavor. Wrong. If you get organic food, first of all, it has flavor. Secondly, if you cook it right with virtually no water, and maybe a little bit of soup stock. And then you use garlic and onion and maybe celery and tomatoes to make it flavorful, not salt, and you have good flavorful food. And as the salt leaves your body, also your saliva loses its component of salt. Did you know that your saliva has salt? The more salt you eat, the more is excreted in your saliva. That's a research project that was done by the University of Tennessee about 20 years ago. They showed that the more people eat salt, I didn't even know that, it's in the saliva. And then when your saliva is loaded with salt, you taste nothing until you put more salt on it. And you poison the body. All right, so it's very difficult now to go on because we need to establish these basics that are largely covered yesterday. Water has to be clean, should be distilled at best, or at least filtered so that it's clean and has no additives in it. You do need water. You don't drink water because you drink so many juices. In the beginning, many patients are thirsty beyond their 13 glasses of juice. It's a lot of fluid. But they're still thirsty in the night. There's no juice. So what do? Never, never, never. When the body demands something, don't help. Supply the body what it needs. If your body says thirsty, you got to drink. So if there's no juice available and you're not supposed to drink water, what do? Tea, herbal tea. There's some very good herbal teas like peppermint tea, there's some mixed teas for sleeping, and there's some Tahibo or Podarco tea, which is a wonderful anti-cancer tea. There are various herbal teas that are very valuable. Please, not the black tea. Not the tea you're used to, which has fluoride in it. And we have to work a little bit on fluoride. Let me go into that for a moment. Fluoride, excuse the smudge there at the edge. Fluoride is a dangerous business. For those of you who have fluoride in the water, but most of you have chlorine in the water. One of your major organs, one of your major hormone systems is the thyroid. And the thyroid, in order to function, needs iodine. And iodine is transferred by the thyroid into thyroxine and other chemicals and controls the metabolism, which, among other things, helps to control the immune system. Extremely important. Now, as you may know, I need to be able to reach this. In the periodic table, always the lightest chemical is at the top. Now, hydrogen, for instance, just has the nucleus, and it has one closed circle with just one ion on it. So it's very light, and it's very powerful. The lighter they are, the more powerful they are. And usually, the lighter the chemical, the easier it is able to displace the one below. But the ones below have similar characteristics. Now let's look at this one that's so important. Fluoride. It's called one of the halogens. Fluoride is at the top and is the strongest and the lightest, and is always capable of displacing the ones underneath. So fluoride can displace chlorine. If they add it to your water, it's deadly. And they've shown that fluoridated water increases the cancer curve rapidly because it damages the thyroid. Now, chlorine comes right below that and has similar characteristics and is still very powerful. Now you have chlorine and bleaches, and you have it in your cleansers and in your laundry bleachers, and it's all over the place. And it's in swimming pools and so on. Also very dangerous because it not only replaces or displaces bromine, but iodine. Here's iodine on the bottom. Well, there's one heavier one. Here's iodine right there. And the iodine, you know, you need for your thyroid to produce the thyroxine. So both fluorides, most powerful, and it's a rat poison. And chlorine, the second but still very powerful, fall into the same group of halogens and can displace this iodine, which you need. And that's the danger. And they put this out for you like nobody's business. It's a terrible thing. And you can't heal once this fluoride continues to be active, because you can't restore the metabolism. You can't restore the hormone system. Everything has to work. Okay, now this is as far as water is concerned. If there are any questions on water, I'll have a little time now.
I read that Epsom salt bathing can bring out toxins.
Epsom salts is also sulfur and other salts. Dr. Gerson advised against even bathing your feet in Epsom salt. No way. Okay, other question? Yes?
The water is used for growing the organic plants that you're eating.
Okay, the water that's used to grow organic plants. The plants are able to filter out, and they're in the soil, and they don't necessarily pick up the fluoride. So in the plants, it's not so dangerous. Other questions? Up there, please. Loud.
What about, if somebody's involved in sporting activities and they do need to have a much higher intake of fluid?
The intake of fluids?
Yeah. If you're involved in, say, heavy-duty sports activities, how do you cope with that?
In sports?
Yes.
Sir, we are talking about healing seriously ill patients. Sports is out of the question. They're not even going to do exercise. We'll cover that later. Furthermore, 13 glasses of 8 ounces each is over a gallon of fluid, or about a gallon of fluid, plus they also get soups. There's very, very adequate fluid involved. So there's no need to worry about dehydration of fluid or anything like that, okay? Other question? Yes, go ahead.
Plastic bottles.
Plastic bottles are not the best thing in the world. And if you buy water, it'll be in a fresh new plastic bottle which outgasses some. It's not anything near as dangerous as fluoride. It outgasses some. If you get water from rather a large container that's constantly used and reused, it's eventually outgassed and harmless. But yes, there is a little bit of a problem with plastic bottles. Even with water, never put juice or any substance like that into a plastic. Okay? Yes?
Some of the teas are about the tea.
What kind of tea?
Well, any kind of tea. You mentioned to use teas and not water if you are still thirsty.
All right.
Right.
The lady is asking about tea. Of course there's water to make tea.
No, some of them are diuretics, so then they cause dehydration if you take them instead of water.
There are various herbal teas that are available and many that are useful and many that we cannot and will not use, but they are detailed. The best tea for the cancer patient, first of all, in order to help stimulate digestion, is peppermint tea. We use a lot of that. To soothe and calm, we use chamomile tea. In order to help to fight tumor tissue, we use the Tahibo Podarco tea. There are various teas that are good. There are others that cause diarrheas and are laxative. Absolutely not. Okay, so you have to be selective, very clearly. Okay, one more question. Yes, way back there, gentlemen.
Mineral water.
What about mineral water? What's contained in mineral water? Salt, calcium, chemicals, absolutely out.
Spring water.
Spring water is sometimes valuable, valid, many times not, because often spring water also has calcium and other minerals in it, plus they do you a big favor. Because there's no fluoride in it, they often add fluoride. No way. No way. Unless you know exactly what minerals are in that spring water. And usually there's calcium and some magnesium and things in there that change the body balances. You can't do that. Okay.
Where do you get distilled water from? Is it the same as you use in your iron?
You get distilled water, firstly, by making it. That's best. You get your own little distiller, or you have to buy it. Unfortunately, here, I understand in London it's very expensive. We can buy a gallon for $1, but it's not that easy here. So if you need distilled water, you have to buy it. It's expensive, or get yourself a little distiller of your own. Okay? If you can catch rainwater and it's clean enough, but you see, have you heard of acid rain? What if it's acid rain? How do you know? Not so simple, okay? There are a lot of problems. So you have to think it through. Don't just because you read something or hear something, think it through. Now let me move on to the next subject, or we will not make it. The next subject is oil. Now, of course, again, a lot of people here didn't buy the book yesterday, and unfortunately, the College of Naturopathic Medicine ran out, and this is the last copy. So we have a problem. Anybody here have this book handy? A few. This is tough. All right. It's hard because then I can't refer to the book. It's all in the book, and it'd be easier if you could find it. I think probably many of you will order the book, and I'll still refer to the page you want to make notes. Okay, page 103, you'll find oil. Okay? Now, the question of oil is not dissimilar from the question of salt. My father was curing cancer. But he became very much aware that whenever he wanted to add some fatty substances so the patients would get their essential fatty acids, every time he added fat, tumors started to regrow. Invariably. He tried every kind of fat, every kind of oil he could think of, everything. And please don't ask me. It's olive oil and it's sunflower oil and safflower oil and corn oil and on, every oil. Any time he added oils or fats, tumors regrew, even if they were already gone. So all through his book, this book, you will find references to fats and oils. Don't use any fats. No fats, no oils, no fats, no oils. And then suddenly you run across the prescription that he used flaxseed oil. And that was discovered by a doctor in Germany, Dr. Johanna Budwig, who combined it also with cottage cheese. We don't do that. But the flaxseed oil, he experimented with it and was extremely valuable. On the one hand, it supplied the essential fatty acids. On the other hand, it did not cause tumor growth. On the third instance, it also helped to clear cholesterol and deposits from the arteries. So it improved circulation, it improved oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. However, you still need to limit it. And we know, you see, this book was written just before he discovered this. And therefore, it didn't say anything about it. However, in Appendix 1 of the book, I'm describing the story. And in letters, and he was always in constant contact with Albert Schweitzer, who was not only a great friend but a supporter, and my father had cured him and his family of various problems. In a letter to Albert Schweitzer, he wrote how he used it. And this is the only reference we have. He used 2 tablespoons a day. Now, tablespoons in America are 15 cubic centimeters, I believe. You have different measures. Now, I can't think of the exact. I believe it's 15 cc's. 15 milliliters. A teaspoon is 5 milliliters, I believe, yes. So in the US, a tablespoon is a standard measure, 15 milliliters, okay. He used 2 tablespoons of 2 times a day, 15 milliliters. Never cooked, never heated, never hot, never fry with it. It must be used raw. And it's tasty. Please do not use it in capsules. It's tasty, so put it on salad. Use it for salad dressing, or sometimes you can also put it on a baked potato, but not if the baked potato is just coming hot out of the oven. Let it cool so you can comfortably eat it. Then you can use the flaxseed oil. Flaxseed oil is available. It should be in a glass bottle. It should be dark, in a dark bottle, so the light doesn't cause deterioration and breakdown. It should be kept closed, and you use it and put it right back in the fridge so that it does not warm up or anything. It's a very sensitive material, and it mustn't be heated. And the good flaxseed oil we use is made by Omega. I believe you can get Omega oil. It's in a black bottle. It's in a plastic black bottle, and it's organic, and that is very usable because it's also bottled under air-free conditions in a carbon dioxide environment, so no air gets into the bottle as they close it. Very important. If you order it, there is available to order it from Omega in Canada, unless you can buy it here. You can buy 4 to 6 bottles, 8 and 12 ounce bottles, and keep them in the freezer up to 6 months. You can keep them in the fridge unopened up to 3 months. Once it's opened, you will want to use it up within 3 weeks. But at the rate of 2 tablespoons a day for the first month for the patient, and after that 1 tablespoon a day, you can quite readily use it up. Besides, it's of great value to the rest of the family, so that the husband doesn't develop cholesterol and heart disease and drop dead of a heart attack, and that the wife doesn't develop breast cancer from salt and fats and so on. In other words, it's just extremely valuable and useful. I use it all the time. I use no other oil or fat. And I use no salt. And I use no animal products. I don't eat meat, fish, cheese, chicken, eggs. I use a little bit, maybe 2-3 ounces of non-fat yogurt a day. Non-fat, not low-fat. Non-fat a day, and that's all the protein I use. And at my age, you're supposed to add a lot of protein to replace tissue. Animal protein, heat damage, does not do you any good. The protein that you do use and that's of value is in the juices, in the fresh food, in the salads. And you say, what do you mean, protein and salad? And I say, where does a cow get her protein? A cow is a big animal. It gives birth to another big animal, the baby cow. And then it gives milk. Where does all that protein come from? Grass. So don't tell me. And there's something else you want to remember. There have been babies born that are allergic to every kind of milk. Of course, the mothers aren't healthy. And they are allergic to cow's milk and goat's milk and soy milk, and they're allergic to formula and everything they could think of. They have been raised on nothing but carrot juice, without a problem. Perfectly normal growth, perfectly normal calcium in the bones, perfectly normal growth. I met 3 people who were raised like that, perfectly healthy, normal, no deficiencies. Carrot juice is perfectly adequate already after 2, 3, 4 weeks of age. Of course, best of all for babies is what? Mother's milk. But the mothers nowadays are sick and undernourished, poorly nourished. And that's another problem. I shouldn't be talking about that. It doesn't fit, but I have to. The young women nowadays, the teenagers and the young women after marriage, they're so poorly nourished that many are just barely able to maintain balance. But now the body is called on to form a whole new body, a baby. So where does all this good food come from? Where do the nutrients come from that our great-grandparents got? From normal, healthy soil, from fresh, organic food, because there was nothing else. Where do they come from? These young women don't have it. And it's very interesting and important to note that nature always favors the baby. And the first thing that happens, the baby gets the mother's reserves. And we have seen too many cases where the mother sometimes is able to manage one baby, but by the second baby, the reserves are gone, the mother isn't eating right, she has nothing to give, the baby is all right, the mother has cancer. Often during pregnancy, or it's diagnosed immediately after. So you have a nice brand new baby, no mother. Terrible. And it's just lack of nutrition. Lack of nutrition. Our young people are so badly nourished. By the way, cancer is now in the US, it's probably close to here too, the #1 killer of children under 17. #1 killer of children. Cancer. Degenerative disease in young children. It's terrible. All depending on the food, on the fast foods, on the depleted foods, on the depleted soil, on the toxic foods, on the food processing, on the lack of potassium and the increase of sodium, on the lack of raw, fresh nutrients. It's a terrible thing. Okay, oils and fats. All oils and fats tend to help tumor growth. Oils and fats, sodium, and animal proteins are the 3 things tumors need to grow on. With one exception, one in the world, and that's the flaxseed oil. Organic and bottled in black and fresh and unheated flaxseed oil. Okay, and we do not use it with a protein because protein has other problems we cover later. And Dr. Gerson found that there's still another advantage to this flaxseed oil because he was giving, of course, tremendous amounts of carrots and carrot juice, and the beta-carotene is extremely valuable in activating the immune system. Not the pharmaceutical stuff. It's been tried. It doesn't work. It's got to be the fresh living material. But the beta-carotene needs fatty substances, needs fat for transport. It has a little bit of its own fat. Carrots do have some oils. But once he was able to give the flaxseed oil for essential fatty acids, he was able to carry the vitamin A better, the beta-carotene, and the patients did better. So all of it was very, very useful. The flaxseed oil was very useful. And please don't ask me about any other oil. None. And please don't put it in capsules because these are animal products and the oil is tasty, so why not use it, enjoy it? Okay, questions on fats and oils? Yes?
If you have a massage.
If you have?
If you have a massage and massage oil, how about that?
Very bad. The question is if you have a massage and you get oil in your skin. Everything you put in your skin goes into your bloodstream. And in the bloodstream, it'll act like oil and fat. Okay? That goes not just for massage oil, it goes for cosmetics, it goes for creams and ointments, it goes for sea water, it goes for fluoridated water. It's on the skin, it goes into the bloodstream. And the regular rule, and this goes straight across the line, is very simple. If you wouldn't eat it, don't put it on your skin. That goes for cosmetics and underarm deodorants and goes for lipstick and everything else. Okay, yes?
Massaging babies with flaxseed oil.
Massaging babies with flaxseed oil, I suppose it could be done. In general, we're not in favor of using flaxseed oil for massage because it clogs the pores. You don't really want to use oils. What you can use if the baby really has dry skin, which is very rare, you can use a little glycerin. Glycerin is trivalent sugar, and it's diluted to a 50-50 with water, and it's no problem. That's also not just for babies, that can also be used for patients on the Gerson therapy. You take flaxseed oil what? Okay, let's be very careful. The question is, why can't baby take it orally? You can't force anything in a very young baby. Very young babies are very delicate, and basically they should have mother's milk. They do fine with carrot juice. I have no idea how they handle oil, and I don't think it's such a good idea. It's not really natural. So I'd hold off until they're at least 9 months to a year old. Yes?
Castor oil, either taking it internally or using it as powder.
What kind of oil?
Castor oil.
Castor oil. That's a whole different story. We come to that later.
What about olive oil?
I begged you, please don't ask for any other oil. It's been tested. It's out. All of them have been tested.
What about the
Italians, once you have cancer, you cannot handle oil other than flaxseed oil. None. Okay. One more question.
What about fish oil?
What about fish oil? They're animal oils and they're cholesterol. It's absolutely worse than plant oils. No oils, don't bother with any of the oils. None of them are safe other than flaxseed oil. Okay, not one. They've all been tested and tried. That includes, for instance, the cod liver oil, vitamin A oil, vitamin E comes in oil. Don't use it. It cannot be used on a cancer patient. Okay. Next subject. Organic food, I covered that. I covered organic soil. I covered the idea that food must be organic, free of poison, because you can't heal with toxic, damaged, deficient food, a toxic, damaged, deficient body. So I won't go any further into that. Now there is a list on page 102, and the other in the older Gerson book, that list is on page 238 of forbidden foods. And I'd like to go over that a little bit, not so much because you can't read, I'm assuming you all read, but there are some of you who are going to say, well, why not this and why not that? Now there is a reason for everything. And just to prove it to you, I'll go over that list and give you some of the reasons behind why certain things are forbidden. Because in somebody else's book, well, why not this, and why can't I eat that, and why, and this book says so and so, and this book says this, and this book says that. If you're going to read 10 books, you probably get 12 different opinions. And I beg you again, if you want to do a therapy that's been proven out for many, many decades, that has the best record, that has the longest record, that has the most recovered patients of the most seriously terminal types of cancers, it's still the Gerson therapy. And I'd like to suggest that you stay with it. Okay. On the forbidden list, first of all, of course, is bottled and canned and frozen and preserved foods, and is refined and salted and smoked foods and sulfured foods. That's understood. Processed food. It's got to be fresh, living fresh. Now comes a long list. Alcohol is forbidden, I don't have to explain. Avocados are forbidden. Why? Too much oil, exactly. It's a plant oil. Too much oil. Berries are forbidden. Now, berries is a little bit of a questionable item in most people's mind, but as you probably know, there are a lot of people that are allergic to berries. And berries are high in aromatics, and we run across other foods and other substances that are high in aromatics and disturb the healing. So temporarily, berries are forbidden. Toothpaste and gargle with bicarbonate and or fluoride. And it's very hard nowadays to find toothpaste that doesn't have fluoride in it. And most toothpaste also have bicarbonate of soda in it, baking soda, supposed to help clear cavities or keep you from developing cavities. Okay, how about getting buried of cancer with a perfect set of teeth? Besides, it doesn't, but just let's assume. And the same goes for your children. Don't allow the fluoride treatments for their teeth. Some children, having had these fluoride treatments, swallowed a bit of the fluoride and died in the dentist chair. Other children with a constant use of fluoridated toothpaste, and in the US, the toothpaste with fluoride now has a bone and crossbone and skull on it. It's poison. It even says so. And there's no proof that fluoride helps to keep cavities away. No proof. But fluoride definitely increases cancer deaths and cancer and allergies and all kinds of diseases. So if you can't find non-fluoridated toothpaste, use distilled water. Don't use any toothpaste before you use fluoride or a soda containing toothpaste. Forbidden: candy, cake, chocolate, cocoa, I don't have to explain. Coffee for drinking. We'll come into coffee later. Cream, of course, is fat. Cucumbers. Why are cucumbers forbidden? They are not all that high in sodium, but the problem with cucumbers is they simply do not agree with juices. For some reason or other, which I don't know specifically, but just experience has shown that cucumbers cause terrible problems, gas and non-digestibility of juices, and on and on and on. Don't use cucumbers. Epsom salts for bathing, as I said, for bathing feet, for bathing the body, and especially for use for laxative or anything else. Fats, I don't have to explain, we went over that. White flour, wheat flour, even whole wheat flour. Wheat is nowadays so depleted and so damaged. It used to be that wheat had as much as 16 to 17% protein. Nowadays it has 4 to 5%. Even whole wheat. Wheat has complex proteins that are hard to digest and not for a cancer patient. Do not use any whole wheat or wheat. You can use rye flour. And here it says again, fluoride in toothpaste and gargle. Hair dyes and permanents. It happens that the scalp is highly vascularized, which means it has a great deal of circulation and it picks up chemicals very, very easily. So anything you put on your hair goes very quickly into the bloodstream. And again, if you wouldn't eat it, don't put it on your hair, on your scalp. Be careful even with shampoos. I've never found a shampoo that's totally safe, so be careful, and perhaps, if possible, don't wash your hair more than once a week. Should be enough. Forbidden: ice cream, I don't have to explain. Mushrooms. Now, a lot of people like mushrooms, they're tasty and so on. However, okay, you're being told that mushrooms are high in proteins. They are. But they are wrong kind of proteins. They're in the wrong configuration. They have too much L-arginine, too little L-lysine, which is just the wrong way, the way they should be. They're complex proteins, hard to digest, and it's no good for a cancer patient. Besides, mushroom's not a vegetable. Mushroom is a fungus. It's not a good food. Not for sick people, especially for cancer patients. Forbidden: nicotine, I don't have to explain. Nuts. Why nuts? Oils. Certain seeds too, most seeds, also much too high in oils. Eat fresh living things. Seeds are not necessarily dead, but I call them dormant. They're not growing, they're not doing anything. You put them here and they'll sit there for many months and won't do anything. They won't sprout or do anything until they're in a humid, warm soil. Then they change completely. So in the meantime, it's unwise to use what you call pulses, what we call, any of the dried lentils and dried peas and dried beans and all of these things. Do not use them. Living foods are the right ones. These dried foods are also turned around proteins, too high in L-arginine, too low in L-lysine, and, very important, nature endows them with an enzyme inhibitor so they don't wildly sprout. So you eat them, you have trouble digesting, they're heavy, they're tough on the intestinal tract, don't use them. Okay? Pineapple. So what's wrong with pineapple? High in aromatics. So high in aromatics that if you eat raw pineapple, it'll eventually burn your tongue, and it hurts your mouth and it burns your lips. So no pineapple. And now comes salt and salt substitutes. Now there is such a thing as low salt or light salt, and they put more potassium in it. There's still salt in it. Don't use salt substitutes. Way back in World War II, when they came out with a salt substitute instead of salt, instead of sodium, they used lithium. And if I had this table up there for you, the periodic table, you would see on the periodic table that lithium ranks right above sodium. So people got sick with sodium and high blood pressure and all kinds of diseases. Lithium, they died. But there was no sodium, right? The doctor said no sodium, so there was no sodium in it. It took about 75 or 78 deaths before they forbade the lithium chloride. But don't even use the light salt, no salt substitute. Spices. These are again the aromatics, and the hot spices are particularly bad, like the peppers, and certain spices are permitted. And you'll run across those, and I don't really want to go through all of that now. I spend more time on the introduction, which I was hoping not to have to do. White sugar is not permitted. Why do I specify white sugar? Because Dr. Gerson allowed a little bit of sweeteners. And the reason is this. The liver in a cancer patient is severely damaged. The liver is toxic. In order to be able to sleep through the night, the liver has to store approximately ½ pound of glycogen, sugar, which gets converted into glucose so that while you're sleeping, you're not eating. While you're sleeping, your brain is working, circulation is working, heart is working, your body's working. Your lungs are working, you're breathing, your diaphragm is working, intestinal tract is working. The body needs sugar. And in many of these seriously ill patients, the body wasn't able to store enough sugar to sleep through the night. So Dr. Gerson said a little sugar, as little as 2 teaspoons of any combination of sugar, raw brown sugar, and we have something it's called sucanat. And what it means is sugar cane natural. And it's pure sugar cane juice that's simply spray dried. So it has all the iron and the enzymes and the other minerals and the potassium and everything is in it. Those sugars and or organic honey or organic maple syrup or some of the other, not the light brown, you have some stuff here and forget what it's called. Demerara, yes, something like that. It's too light, it's already partly refined, I wouldn't use that. When it's really good and dark, it has the nutrients, it has the iron in it, it has the minerals in it, and that's why this material is really very valuable. But you may not be able yet to find it. Hopefully someday it'll come into the UK. But Dr. Gerson allowed some, with exception. Of course, if the patient had diabetes, no. If the patient had hypoglycemia, no. If they had candida, no. But otherwise, it's better because the cancer patient will wake up if they don't have enough glycogen. Of course, juices do contain sugars, not too much, and with the enzyme activity, a lot of people say, oh yes, but there's too much sugar and it'll make the tumors grow. Not true. The enzymes don't allow the tumors to grow. The tumors don't like active enzyme activity. And the body is now capable of fighting and suppressing and destroying the tumor tissue. So that's not a problem. Okay, so sugar, certain sugar items, and they're detailed in the book, are permitted. Also forbidden, of course, is black tea. It says tea. What is meant is the regular black tea, the Twinings and all of the ordinary teas that are served in the UK or any place. And then, of course, water, drinking water, is forbidden. Now, there are reasons for all of these things. They have been tried, they have been tested, they either work or they don't work. If they don't work, the patients get worse. My father said the only thing that matters is the results at the sick bed. And when the patients got well, he incorporated into the therapy. If they had problems, and many things that can be tested now in research were not able at that time. In the 40s and early 50s, that was not always available. So he had to judge by the patient's well-being. And he cured the terminally ill patients, 90% of which were the ones that came to him. And they're the most sensitive and the most difficult. Okay, are there any questions on the forbidden foods? Okay. Yes?
What about tamari? Tamari as a...
What's tamari made of? Soy is poison. Soy is forbidden. Besides, it's high in salt. Why use tamari? Be very careful. Read your content. Yes, you have a question.
Hair dye, henna.
Henna? Okay. Henna happens, I will admit that for some years I used hair dye. I used the normal average dye because I'm not sick. And I had no problem with it. Then somebody said, well, maybe you should use henna. Of course, it's not oil and it doesn't fit in our subject. So I tried it. Gave me raging headaches. Okay? So the answer is no. Okay? Yes? That's correct. Because the enzyme could be valuable. The question is, pineapple contain an important enzyme. The enzyme could be valuable, but the irritation and damage is worse than the positive. Believe me, there's a reason. I know it's high in enzyme, and Dr. Gerson knew it. Yes? No, you.
Could you replace the sugar with honey?
Could you replace sugar with honey?
Could you?
Yes, organic honey. And let's be very careful. The honey should not be highly flavored or dark. The lightest honey is best, like clover honey. Okay?
What about green tea?
What about green tea? Green tea is very valuable, and I'm only just now experimenting with it. It's very good, but green tea in certain combinations contains also caffeine or theine, and you've got to be careful and make sure there's no caffeine in it, okay? But green tea can be very valuable, okay? Question?
Japanese, they believe green tea is really good, but it has to be very fresh.
Yes, well, correct. Okay, we're still talking about green tea. I know some green tea is really valuable, and I've had some very good results with experimenting with it, but it should not have any caffeine in it, okay?
Bananas.
Bananas are fruit. Bananas, the doctors love bananas and claim they are high in potassium, eat a lot of bananas. Bananas are not very digestible. They're also too high in sugars. So if the patient is limited to 1 banana a day, okay, and organic, okay. But other than that, they should not eat a lot of bananas, no matter what doctors say. They're much better fruit. Apples are vastly superior to bananas. Okay, besides, it has nothing to do with our toxic foods, and let's please try to stay with the subject. I'd like to move on now, please. I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you. Yes, that's temporarily forbidden foods I talked about. And temporarily forbidden is usually 1.5 to 2 years, because it's not specified. Temporarily forbidden is like fish and certain milk products and so on. Absolutely. They are forbidden because eggs and cheese are fat and protein and stimulate tumor growth. Okay, so we have to be very careful with all of that. Okay, now let's go and move on to spices. I don't really want to separately discuss because they are discussed in the book. There are certain spices in small amounts that are permissible. Others are absolutely out because they are much higher or much too high in aromatics, which includes like pepper and oregano and basil, and there are a whole lot of others too. Certain spices are permitted. I'll read you a quick list just to give you an idea. But, and let me just say this. Dr. Gerson makes it very clear. Spices must be used sparingly, as they may counteract the healing reaction. That's even the permitted ones. Okay, permitted. Allspice, anise, bay leaves, coriander, dill, fennel, mace, marjoram, rosemary, sage, saffron, tarragon, thyme, sorrel, and summer savory. Period. And there's no question, no others in parentheses, in large caps. These are permitted, no others. Okay? So it's very important, and they are all tested, and even those that are permitted should be used very sparingly, so you don't just pour it on. Okay? Be very careful with spices. Other things such as onions, garlic is very valuable, even some parsley, chives, and celery to cook with as part of your cooking, and tomatoes. All of those are very valuable and can make flavor and add, and can be added to foods in unlimited quantities. But these particular herbal spices have to be used sparingly. Okay? Now, we're going to move on here to the very important subject of juice and juicing. And of course, why do we insist so much on juice? And why does the Gerson therapy insist on 13 glasses of fresh juice a day? The problem is that patients are severely depleted. Furthermore, the terminal patient usually has real trouble eating. They're not hungry. They can't eat much. They eat a little bit and they're full. So what are you going to do? How are you going to put the food and the nutrients into them? Pills don't work. So what are you going to do? It so happens that they can drink juice. And every hour a glass of juice is not a problem. So they get the fresh living nutrients, fresh active enzymes, fresh organic minerals and vitamins poured into their system all the time. And that's the key to replenishing and rebuilding their body. With those 13 glasses of juice, plus 3 meals, and even if they don't eat very much at meals, and some snacks of fruit between meals and at night time when they can, they get almost a total of 20 pounds worth of fresh food a day. Now, how else are you going to get into them other than with juice? They can't eat it. You healthy people can't eat that much. But the juices, they can handle. The juices have to be fresh. Now, you can't make the carrot juice in the morning and then go away and save it for all day. That is not cricket. You cannot do that. It's got to be fresh. And that's why the Gerson therapy is so work-intensive. You make a fresh glass of juice every hour, especially in the really seriously ill patient. Later on, you may be able to make 2 or 3 glasses at a time. You can never, ever make enough juice for the day and then just keep drinking it out of the fridge. You can't do that. You lose the enzymes, you lose the activity. Aside from the carrot apple juice, there are 2 other kinds of juice. Pure carrot juice, which is given together with the liver capsules, because the liver, with the pure carrot juice, produces abscisic acid, which Dr. Virginia Livingston found was very important to help activate the immune system. So we use that. And then the rest, there are 4 glasses of juice that are made from greens. And it's not wheatgrass juice, because you know full well that nobody can drink a whole 8-ounce glass of wheatgrass juice, let alone 4 times a day. It just doesn't digest. It causes serious problems. We do not use wheatgrass. And that's another thing. You'll find what to use, how to produce this green leaf juice. And it's very important that you understand not so much what's in the juice. You've got to keep looking it up. You have to look it up in here too, and it's on page 118. In the first Gerson book, it's on page 241. And this is the way he puts it. And please read it carefully. It's a little bit more carefully and more in depth described in this new book because people had trouble. He says, procure as many of the various kinds of leaves as possible mentioned below, no others. Now it says as many as possible. You can't imagine how many calls we get. Well, I can't get this one, I can't get that one, what should I do? Well, as many as possible. You can't. Sometimes you can only get 2 or 3. There's 9 mentioned. So you can't get them all. That's assumed. He says as many as possible. Then in parentheses, no others. So you get questioned, well, can I replace it with this? Can I replace it with that? The answer is no others. It's quite clear. But either people don't read, or they don't understand, or they have other ideas. And then it gives a list of 9 different items: lettuce, red cabbage, beet tops, Swiss chard, escarole, endives, romaine I think you called. You have some different names for it, it doesn't matter. A little bit of green pepper, watercress, very valuable. And then, very important, add 1 medium apple for each glass of juice. What does the medium apple do in the green juice? It provides pectin. And the pectin makes the juice very digestible. It's much easier on the intestinal tract. So the green juice is highly digestible as opposed to wheatgrass juice, which is highly indigestible. And the patients can easily take green juice because sometimes they even like it better than carrot juice. It's not as sweet or whatever. And then comes a very strange thing, and we'll cover that later, the so-called healing reactions, the flare-ups. During that time, even patients who really like the green juice, suddenly they can't handle the green juice. Oh, it's horrible. Even it comes in the door. They feel terrible. Now, I've never had a healing reaction because I'm well. I don't have a healing reaction. But I've seen this in a very large percentage of the patients. And I don't understand it, but we see it all the time, so we have to accept it. Now what do you do? When the patients say, oh, I can't drink the green juice. There's several ways of dealing with that. If they only object to the smell, sometimes, you put a plastic lid on it. You put a hole in the lid with a ballpoint pen or something, stick a straw in there, and they drink it with a straw. It goes further back in the mouth, they don't taste it so much, and often they can take it that way. In general, they should not take straws to drink the juice. Why not? Juice is pre-digested with the saliva in the mouth. You shouldn't even pour it down. You should salivate a little bit to help you pre-digest it with the saliva. And if you take a straw, part of that pre-digestion is bypassed, is not good. So you should be drinking the juice regularly without a straw. Then there's other things. If patients really cannot drink the juice, and in certain flare-up situations when the body really starts to detoxify, it's very toxic, and the bile flows into the stomach, and the stomach is full of toxins, and they vomit everything. It's possible. They dehydrate. Well, you can't have that. You take the cup of juice, put it in a bowl with warm water, and warm it to body temperature. Not hotter, and don't put in a pan, not with fire. And put it in the enema bucket, and put it in the rectum. Rectal absorption is excellent. Now, I'm not saying it's 100%. And in general, you should not be taking the juices rectally. Whenever possible, of course, the patient should be drinking it. But if they can't drink it, if they vomit, and it happens, that's one way to put it into them. Now, you know that in babies and very young children, for instance, they can't administer chemicals or pills or drugs. They put it into the rectum. Works fine. It's highly absorptive. The colon is highly absorptive. So you can very easily, very well, give the juices, including also the green juice. If they can't handle it, drinking it, put it in the rectum. One exception, don't do that with orange juice. There's another thing that you may have to do with the juices. When the patients have trouble digesting, or if they have stomach ulcers, or stomach cancer, or pain, or some other difficulty in digestion, Dr. Gerson suggested you put about 2 ounces of your 8-ounce glass, you put 2 ounces of strained oatmeal gruel in the cup, and then fill it with the juice. Even the green juice, in those cases, then goes down and is digestible. Sometimes when the patients are really in trouble with digestion and have acid stomach and have gas and other problems, just drinking the oatmeal gruel by itself will settle it. It doesn't have much taste, it doesn't taste of anything, but it's so soothing, they love it. It helps, it works. And that's the key with much of the Gerson therapy. You don't need to use drugs. The normal thing, you know, you have an upset stomach, you will reach for the, I don't know what, Zantac or something or other. Or you have diarrhea, you reach for some drug. Or your practitioner or somebody says, well, take this drug or take that drug. Well, with the drugs, you upset all of the healing you're trying to do. And very often, these upsets come through the healing, because in the course of healing, the body gets rid of toxic stuff. And it's got to get rid of it. And it causes upsets. And it causes temporary problems. But if you kill it with drugs, then you stop the healing. Yeah, sure, the patient feels better. But you stop the healing, then you start all over again. Then I have another one next time. It's not the way to go, and it isn't necessary. We'll cover more of that when we get into healing reactions. So the juicing is most important. But one other thing I'd like to point out here. The juice is so strong, it is so powerful, that it goes very easily and very quickly into the tissues. The enzymes and the nutrients in the juices are very quickly absorbed into the tissues. Now there's no room for two things in the tissues, so one has to go. And what goes? The poisons that don't belong. The accumulated sodium, other toxic substances that you've been accumulating over your lifetime, they're sitting in these tissues and they've got to go. And they do. So what happens? As you drink the juices, or as the patient drinks the juices, the patient's tissues release the toxins into the bloodstream. Now the patient objects to enemas, or you object to enemas. They don't want to take enemas. The juicing sounds all right, but enemas, forget it. You can't do that. You can't do a half a therapy. Because what you're doing now, you're putting the nutrients into the tissues. You're forcing the poisons out into the bloodstream. They get filtered out through the liver. They sit in the liver. And if you don't help the liver get rid of them, you damage your liver more. You can't do that. Please don't do a half a therapy. The therapy works as a cycle, like everything should work. You drink the juices, you release the toxins, they go into the bloodstream and out. And if you don't help them out with a sick, damaged liver, with a blocked, toxic liver, you just push more poisons into the liver. And you can really risk further disease and serious problems in a cancer patient. If the cancer patient absolutely refuses the enemas, don't start the therapy. Don't do half a therapy. It's dangerous, outright dangerous. Be very careful. Dr. Gerson lost some patients before he realized the importance of the detoxifying enemas. He lost patients to liver coma. They didn't die of cancer. They died of liver coma, damage to the liver. Now don't do it. Okay? Okay, now the juicing machines. This is a different problem. There are many kinds of juicers now on the market. Dr. Gerson preferred, and we prefer, if at all possible, to use the two process machines. Grind the material first, and there are certain grinders available. You can even use a Champion juicer as a grinder, but as a grinder only. Now the Champion juicer has a plate that you can put under it so it doesn't juice. It only grinds the material, comes out the front. That's okay. If you juice, it's not so good, because I'm sorry to have to say, this is wonderful juice, and I appreciate that I have it. I need it for energy, you know, when I'm working like this for 4 hours, it's strenuous. But it's not the best kind of juice. The best kind of juice doesn't settle out. It doesn't have this foaminess. Eventually, it settles. If I left it sit here for an hour, it would settle into mush on top and water. That's not the right kind of juicing. It's best for a Champion to then have a press, and presses are available. The ground up mush goes into a tight filter cloth, which is supplied with the machine, and it now goes under pressure. The pressure is simply applied with a jack, same as a jack that you use when you jack up your car. It's pretty powerful. It's very simple. And if it ever leaks or breaks, your neighborhood garage will replace it for a few pounds. It's not very expensive. So you can and you should, if at all possible, have a two-process kind of juicer. Grind, press. There's another reason for that. When the ground up carrots and apples are mixed, after you grind them, they mix. When they're mixed, The acid of the apple helps to release some more of the minerals from the carrots, and you get a better juice. You get more minerals. It's been tested. You get more minerals, you get a better juice. There are now juicers that have these double grinding wheels, and one is called the Green Power, and there's one more. They're quite good. They extract a good deal of juice. The pulp is quite dry. It's not bad at all. But the double process, grind first, then press, is still the best. If you possibly can, it's more work. If you possibly can, and if a patient is really, really seriously ill, you want to get the best. Okay? It's a little more expensive. Not much, actually. A Champion press doesn't cost much more than the Green Power. It's about the same. And it works, and that's the key. Now, when it comes to a plain centrifugal machine, that just as it grinds, it sort of beats out the fluid, they don't work. We had a patient here in London who had melanoma, and the Gerson therapy is unusually effective in melanoma. We have outstandingly good results. One of these little booklets is on melanoma with many, many recovered patients, and nowhere near all of them. I could easily put together 100. There's only a dozen in the booklet. This patient had melanoma and not much money. She had a centrifugal juicer, the cheapest. She did get organic food. She did the Gerson therapy. She did everything. And nothing happened. She didn't get worse. She didn't die. She didn't get better. Nothing happened. Tumor was just sitting there. Then she managed to borrow a better machine, a Champion, which is better than the centrifugal alone. It will work. Not the best, but it works. And with a Champion juicer, that was the only change. In 2.5 months, her tumor was gone. So we know, and Dr. Gerson experienced it, and we know it from other experiences, but this was in the UK, we know that the centrifugal juicers do not do the job. Don't waste your time, don't waste your money. You waste your expensive produce, your organic stuff, if you're not extracting the good value out of it when you only get water out of it, almost. You get only about 5% of the nutrients. The Champion gets roughly 12 to 15%. The combination of the press, of the grinder and press gets much more. It gets up to 52 to 55%. That's why we recommend it. Okay, so it's not just the juice and the juicing, but it's the right machine. It makes a difference. All right, now how are we coming along time-wise? We can go on a little further. I'd like to give you a break, yes?
And there's something I don't understand. Where the grinder and the press, this is also available in one machine?
Yes, well, as one machine, it's mounted on one base, and that's the most expensive one. It's called the Norwalk. And the Norwalk has the electric grinder, and then it has the press, and the press is also connected to the electric motor. So all you do is flip a switch, and it comes up, the hydraulic press. That's $2,000, and I don't know, by the time you get it over here with customs duty, and I don't know, it's quite expensive. Not everybody can handle it, but it's the best, and it's the easiest to handle. Okay? Yes. All right, now let's go on and talk a little bit about the menus and the cooked foods. It's very interesting when patients come to the hospital, often the first thing they say, but all our food is cooked. They get their cooked oatmeal in the morning, and it usually is served never with milk, never with soy milk. What's oatmeal served with? With fruit compote, with applesauce, with raw mashed fruit, and whatever is available, or some grapes, or some cut up apples and raisins, or all kinds of things. You can do a lot of variation using the oatmeal as a base. I tell people, well, use it like a custard and vary it by giving it different sauces.
With honey?
Honey you may use, yes, we talked about honey. Yes, you may use honey. But it's a good idea to use some fruit with it. Okay? All right, and that's breakfast, and of course with a fresh glass of juice. Then lunch. Well, it starts with a nice big salad, then there's a special soup, then there's baked potatoes, then there's the cooked vegetables, and sometimes stewed fruit, sometimes raw fruit, and dinner is similar to lunch. So they say, well, all our food is cooked. Well, out of the 20 pounds worth, only about 3 pounds worth is cooked. What about all the raw juices? More than 75% is raw. And very often it's important to note that these juices will not easily be digested if the patient doesn't have a little bit of cooked food. For one, cooked food is important because of the vegetables. They're easier to digest, the fiber is broken down. They get lots of raw vegetables as it is. They get raw salads, but it's easier to digest. Furthermore, you need some of this soft bulk to help the food and the juices to move along. You need some soft bulk. Most patients can't eat raw, then they stop eating altogether. Now you can't afford that. They've got to eat. They've got to be able to digest the juices. So the baked potatoes or the cooked potatoes, you can vary potatoes, you can cook them in their jackets, you can make them into potato salad, you can put them in the oven with vegetables. There are all kinds of ways. You can mash them with a soup, no milk. Use the soup, and there are various things that you can do. So potatoes don't always have to be baked, but baked are very tasty, are very good. So the patients feel they're getting all cooked foods, but it isn't true. But the cooked foods are very, very important so that the body can handle the rest of the raw foods and the raw juices and the raw salads. Okay? So the body does need some soft bulk. And it isn't just bulk, it's nutrients. When patients ask, well, where do I get my proteins? Part of the protein comes from potatoes. Potatoes are very high in proteins. Mother's milk for babies that have to double their weight in 3.5 months, and they triple their weight in a year, right? Mother's milk has roughly, 2.7% protein. Baked potatoes have 2.4%. And for the cancer patient, the vegetarian protein is easily absorbed and assimilated. That's where you are winning. And the vegetables have proteins, and the oatmeal has protein. And please be careful with any other grains. The oatmeal is very special because it cooks down into a soft bulk. Very often other grains are harsh and hard. They don't cook to a soft mush. So oatmeal is very valuable, and you should never change from oatmeal. Like I said, you can vary it by using different fruit and different combinations, but stay with the oatmeal. Okay? And this is now the cooked food and the menus ideas. And we come to the all-important enemas. And I think this is the time when I give you a few minutes to stretch or to go to the bathroom or whatever you need to do. But please, don't make it more than 10 minutes because we're never going to cover all the material. Thank you. All right, let's go on now, and we have to discuss the all-important enemas. As I already pointed out, it's utterly impossible, actually dangerous, to do the therapy without enemas. So if anybody says, okay, I'm willing to eat all the food, and I'm willing to drink the juices, I'm willing to do all that, but I don't like the idea of enemas, don't touch the therapy. And it works the other way around too. You say, well, if enemas are so important, I'll do the enemas and I'll drop everything else. I'll eat whatever I please. That's no good either. Doesn't work. It's a very carefully coordinated and a carefully managed system. And every part of it depends on every other part of it. And it has to be a cycle. Let me give you an example. One day, We were sitting at table at my parents' house. It was a holiday in America, the Thanksgiving Day, which is usually Turkey Day, okay? I don't know whether we had turkey, unlikely, but whatever, the family was sitting around, the phone rings. And a man is on the phone and he says, you know, my wife has been doing so well on the therapy and she had melanoma and her whole arm was full of tumor tissue and much of it is gone. I'm so pleased, everything is great. And it's been now about a month and a half. Can she have a little piece of turkey? Just a little piece of white meat turkey. So my father says, no, 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 absolutely not. Well, why not? She's been so good. Now they start wheedling like naughty kids. Oh, please, Mommy. Okay. And he kept going on. And my father said, no, I cannot take that responsibility. Okay, I'll take the responsibility, he says. It's a case of fools rush in, right? Anyway, that was the end of that. What are you going to do? On the telephone, hit him over the head? 2 hours later, phone rings. The wife's in a coma. Now, it's not that turkey causes a coma. What happens is this. When the body is so busy absorbing all these toxic masses, all these tumor masses, it kills them off. It's now dead tissue. It's rotten tissue. Do you know how you feel if you eat a piece of rotten meat? It's in your stomach. This is in the bloodstream. It's dangerous. And it goes in through the liver and it's filtered out and the enemas take care of it and more goes into the liver and it's filtered out and the body cleanses and heals and cleanses and heals. That works. But the little bit of protein, the little bit of meat blocks that liver function and stops the elimination. Just enough. So the toxins remain in the bloodstream, bang, hit the brain. And the brain, by the way, takes approximately 2/5 of the ozone, the oxygen from the body. It's a little organ. It takes 2/5 of your oxygen to keep your brain going. The rest is for the rest of your body. So in this case, it poisoned her brain. Of course, the whole bloodstream. Now what do you do? Now he calls, she's in a coma. Yeah, but you took the responsibility, right? So now my father says, okay, give her coffee enemas every 2 hours. It's normally every 4 hours. Every 2 hours around the clock, day and night. You got to clear her again of this accumulated. Now it's accumulated toxin in the liver. Well, he saved her. That did the trick. But it's a dangerous thing to do. A little piece of turkey, who would think it? It just blocks the cycle. It blocks the cycle of healing and absorption and healing and absorption. I can give you another case. Now, these are the cases of healing reactions that we come to a little later. A woman also with melanoma comes to the Mexican hospital from Florida, all the way across country. And it's a long trip. United States is a big place. And she's in terminal condition. She has tumors black all up her arm, and there's a ridge on top of her arm, and there's a tumor under her arm the size of a goose egg, and it's in her lungs. And she's spitting blood and coughing, and she's pale and yellow, a typical terminally ill patient. Pain, lungs. And within a week, all these tumors are breaking up. These are flattening out. This one is down to half. And she's in a healing reaction. And we increase the enemas. Now we start with 5 a day. Now when the body is so rapidly absorbing some of this tumor tissue, you actually increase it. You don't decrease it as the patient goes along. You do what the patient needs. And in this case, the patient needs additional detoxifying. So we detoxed her, And she did remarkably well. After 2.5 weeks, she went home in great condition, had pink cheeks again, had good color, eating and drinking. The pain was gone, coughing was gone, no more spitting of blood. The tumors had reduced. This one was down to about 1/3. It was fantastic. 3.5 weeks later, at approximately 6 weeks, and we get a heavy healing reactions. The first week when they're at the hospital, usually within 6 weeks, and then around 3.5 months, it could be the heaviest. At the 6-week point, I get a phone call. The son is on the phone. Last night, he says, my mom was walking around the apartment, and she was talking nonsense. She was repeating herself and saying silly things. So we put her to bed. And then this morning, she didn't really wake up. She was just sort of dulled, and so we took her to the hospital. And the doctor says, well, of course, now the tumor has gone into the brain. She's dying. What shall we do? What did I say? Get her out of the hospital now. Not this afternoon, immediately. Take her home. Give her coffee enemas every 2 hours around the clock, and call me in 24 hours. What happened? What was the problem? When she started to walk around the apartment, talking nonsense, her brain was toxic. Okay. Her brain was getting toxins, what? From the absorbing tumor tissue. Her brain was getting toxic problems. So what did they do when she was walking around and talking nonsense? What should they have done? Coffee enema, detox. She was toxic. Her brain was toxic. Her brain was toxic. So instead of putting her to bed there, what should they have done? Coffee enema, detox. But no, now she is lying in bed sleeping, and the body continues to absorb tissue, and they didn't give her an enema, the night enema. So by morning, she is semi-comatose. Now they take her to the hospital where no doctor has ever seen melanoma heal, never. Spread terminal melanoma, in their book, doesn't heal. So naturally, the only thing he can assume is it's now in the brain and she's dying. Her best friend, her husband, her own son would have not been able to say, because that's what they learn in school. Nobody has ever healed this kind of problem. So they took her home and gave her enemas every 2 hours around the clock, and the next day she was fine. But that is a problem. What are you going to do? You get scared. The patient is talking nonsense. You get frightened. You take them to the hospital. And the hospital, they say, well, they're dying. They give them some sort of drug. And that is the end. That's now a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay? You've got to understand the therapy. You've got to understand the basics, the philosophy. You've got to understand that when the body heals, when the body breaks down malignant tissue, it's toxic material. And when the patients get dulled or dazed or headachy or feverish, you've got to detox, not put them to bed there. It's misplaced sympathy. Doesn't work. Okay? It's not easy, people. When I tell you the whole problem is toxicity and deficiency, it sounds easy. It isn't. You're dealing with terminally ill people. And we're dealing with situations that doctors don't learn in school. They have no understanding of healing terminal cancer. They learn in school terminal cancer, you die. You make the patient, you alleviate their pain and make it easier for them. That's all. But that's not what we want to do. We want to save them, and in very large number of cases we are able to. But you've got to know and understand that what I'm trying to do is help you understand the basics. Detox and flood the body with nutrients when you are toxic and deficient. Makes sense? It's a natural, logical thing to do. When you're full of toxins, you detoxify. When you're deficient, you flood the body with nutrients. And the whole therapy is built around that basis, around that philosophy. Now, there are little additional tools. The enemas, for instance, have to be changed. After chemotherapy, you're dealing with a different animal. Excuse me, it's a human being. Because the chemo leaves poisons in the system. And they're very difficult to overcome. And when we first dealt with chemo patients, Dr. Gerson didn't talk about chemo. Why? There was no chemo used in his day. He didn't deal with it. At any rate, it's different because the doctors tell you, and this is what we find too, that with the chemo, the body usually releases or is able to eliminate roughly 40-45% of what they pump into you. And the rest, where is it? The rest stays. And it often goes into the fatty tissue or into the connective tissue. I don't know where it goes. It can't stay in the liver because you die. The liver poison the liver and that's it. I know that the kidneys get damaged, the liver get damaged, the bone marrow get damaged, the immune system is damaged, everything is poisoned. The reason why chemo to some extent in some people works is because tumor tissue grows rapidly. And because it grows rapidly, it grabs everything out of the bloodstream, good and bad. The nutrients, got to have food to grow. But it also grabs the poison, so it grabs the poison a little faster than the healthy tissue grabs the poison. So you poison the malignant tissue a little faster before the healthy tissue gives out. But eventually the healthy tissue also takes damage. That's how you damage the liver and the kidneys and the bone marrow, and the whole immune system, everything. The brain. Children for leukemia who get chemo, they can't study, they can't learn, they can't concentrate, the brain, everything. Blood doesn't stop here, circulates. We've had one indication, possibility, where the chemo actually goes. We don't know. One patient came to us with ovarian cancer. And with ovarian cancer, they give unconscionable amounts of chemo. All kinds of chemo, and some of the worst, the Taxol, which is extremely toxic. And then it comes back, and they give more chemo, and then it comes back again, and in this case, they did a bone marrow transplant. This poor woman, how she survived is beyond me, but she did. And she wanted to do the Gerson therapy. She didn't admit to the bone marrow transplant, she said, because she thought we might not have accepted her, and we might not have. But she came to the hospital, and slowly, slowly, she improved, and we already have to reduce the therapy and less enemas and less juices and less medication for the patients who've had chemo. So slowly she improved. But then she had what we recognize very, very regularly, she had the 6-month chemo reaction. The other patients don't have that. But the chemo patients at 6 months suddenly release a lot of that accumulation. And of course they get very sick. But usually with the therapy, they're able to deal with it. In this case, it was the only case we've ever seen like this, with this enormous amount of chemo and bone marrow transplant where they poison you within a quarter inch of your death, of your life. In this case, the lady broke out all over her body in boils, pus bubbles, all over. And she dealt with it, she did the enemas, she treated it with hydrogen peroxide, very valuable by the way, and she cleared it. They healed, the pus cleared, and healed, and then she was better. And we have to assume that a lot of that chemo settled in the fatty tissue and in the connective tissue right under the skin, and eventually the body just broke it open and cleared it. And then she got better. Never ever seen it ever again. But that sort of gives us an indication of where that chemo is settling. It's got to go out of the major systems, because if it's in there, you die. It's highly poisonous. The original chemo was made from mustard gas. Now that must be good for you, to get mustard gas pumped into you when you're already sick with cancer, right? The problem also with cancer is many malignant cells become resistant to chemo. Then they have to use other chemo and more chemo, until eventually the chemo doesn't work. And the body is so poisoned with it that the defenses don't work either. And then they say, well, sorry, that's all we can do for you. Against you is my look at it. At any rate, patients who've had chemo, we cannot give castor oil for the treatment to detox them more rapidly. We've done it first. We didn't know. The first time we had 2 chemo patients at the same time, we ever accepted them. And we thought it would be good to detox them as rapidly as possible. And they did the regular 5 enemas a day, and then we started them 2-3 days into the castor oil treatment. Yeah, it worked so rapidly and so effectively that it released the chemo much too much at a time, and we gave the patients an overdose of chemo by forcing it out of the tissues. We didn't touch chemo, but by pushing it out of the tissues too rapidly with the castor oil, they got an overdose. Now we learned in a hurry, because these patients ended up in intensive care for an overdose of chemo that we never touch. So we learned, never give a chemo patient with prior chemo, even if it's as much as 6 or 8 years back. Never give a patient castor oil who's had chemo. Reduce the therapy, and that's all in the book. Reduce the therapy. Give only 3 enemas instead of 5 a day. Give less juices, give less potassium, give less medication. Everything is reduced so that these patients are not overloaded and overly stimulated to release the poisons in a hurry. It's dangerous. Okay? But the castor oil for the non-chemo patients is extremely valuable. I'll give you another example. We had a lady who came to the hospital. She had been in New York at Sloan Kettering, and they opened her up, and closed her. I don't know where her cancer originated, but when they opened her, they found 92% of her liver had turned into malignant tumor tissue. 92%. They say you need at least 1/3 of your liver functioning to even survive. 92%, assuming 8%. Maybe there was a little more somewhere that they didn't find. But at any rate, she started on the therapy with the castor oil. And she got better. And about 4 or 5 months into the therapy, she called in and she wanted to have ongoing directions of what to do. And she talked, unfortunately, to one of the doctors who was not very experienced. By the way, can you see now how this separates? Wonderful juice, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Mush. Thank you. Okay, so this lady, with 92% of her liver, she calls in around 4 or 5 months later and talks to this doctor, and he asks, well, how many castor oil treatments are you doing? Oh, she says 1 every other day. She never changed from her first intensive treatment. Oh, he says, That's too much at this point. After 5 months, you don't need that. Do 2 a month. Never reduce it from every other day to 2 a month. Bad mistake. Slowly help the body along. If the body now can manage on its own, fine, reduce it. If it can't, increase it again. This liver, which was so terribly damaged and probably had a lot of scar tissue and didn't have much function left, could not manage when she stopped the castor oil. And she slowly deteriorated. She didn't get more cancer, but the body was not able to deal with the normal detoxing, with the normal waste of the metabolism, without the help of the castor oil, because there was too little liver tissue left. And she slowly worsened and got tireder and tireder and started to sleep more and have less energy. Wasn't necessary. You got to know what you're doing. You got to understand the problem. In her case, 92% of the liver was tumor tissue. You can't do that. So that's where we are, and that's where we have to be able to understand and help the body along. Now, generally, the body will give you the signals. Normally, you're tired, you go to sleep. Normally, you're hungry, you eat. Normally, you're thirsty, you drink. You do that with the Gerson therapy. But the clock says not yet time for an enema. Makes no difference. If you're toxic, you're headachy, you're logy, you're not working right, the clock has nothing to do with it. Your body says, now.
If you had chemo 23 years ago, would you use castor oil?
Even 20 years ago, chances are it's still in your system.
What should I do about that?
You do a less intensive treatment, okay, just like it says in the book. Okay, so that's where we are.
You mentioned chemotherapy, you haven't mentioned radiotherapy.
Radiation is a totally different problem. It doesn't leave poisons in the body. Chemo leaves poison, toxic stuff. Radiation burns, is easily reversible. If you look in Dr. Gerson's book, and if you look at case number 11, he was exposed originally to the atom bomb at Los Alamos. He then has testicular cancer, and he got surgery, and 88 deep X-ray treatments, was burnt to a crisp. He's still alive after 45 years. Radiation damage is eminently curable because it's burn. It's not poison, it's burns. And with orthodox treatment, they don't heal. The Gerson therapy can overcome. That's not the problem. The problem is chemo that leaves poison in the body. Okay? Okay. All of these things can heal and do heal. Liver cancer, eminently curable. One of the booklets that we have out there is colon cancer with liver and pancreatic cancer with liver metastases. Curable. Cured.
But you can't obviously do coffee enemas until they join up.
Well, wait a minute. If we have just colostomies, we can do coffee enemas into the colostomy, preferably if it's on the left side of the body, so much of the colon is still intact. Now, if there's a cyst and an opening into the vagina, it should go above that, if possible. But that closes, so it all heals eventually. Without the enemas, don't touch the therapy. Remains the same. Don't do the therapy. Okay? All right. So, look, we can't keep interrupting. We're not going to get there. Okay? Please wait until I give you a chance to ask questions. These flare-ups are very difficult to deal with, largely because they differ with each patient. In each patient, the flare-up will heal the problem that that patient has. And for instance, we've had a patient with cancer who, among other things, had serious problem with his right foot. It seems that a heavy weight fell on it, and he had pain in it and would swell up, and the leg would swell up, and this and that. And the first thing that happens, the first flare-up, the whole leg swells up and the foot swells up. Now what are you going to do? It panics the patient. Never been so bad. They're scared. If they weren't at the hospital, they would go, if they were not at the Gerson therapy hospital, they would go to a doctor. And the doctor would give them drugs and all kinds of things. Instead, we leave it alone. Give it 2-3 days, the whole thing heals, and for once, the damage from the original injury clears, and that's the end of it. Never had another problem. Leg didn't swell anymore, there was no more pain. But sometimes the patients even forget to tell you about these things. They completely forget. They consider it completely healed. It hasn't given him any trouble. They forget to tell you. And then everybody panics. We had a patient who had lymphoma. We had eminently good results with lymphoma. And he had lymph nodes on his neck, lymph nodes under his arm, and these were already virtually gone in the 3 weeks he spent at the hospital. And he went home. Wife was there, learned the therapy. They did the therapy at home. After 3 weeks, the 6-week flare-up. After 3 weeks, he has terrible pain in his right leg. Why the legs? It's lymphoma. In his right leg, it swells. The pain is so bad he can't walk. And he has an idea what the problem is. But it lasts another day and another, 3 days. Finally, the wife can't stand it. She's so nervous, she's so upset. When a patient has cancer, it's the first thing they think of. There's more cancer. It's now spread to the bone or something like that. So he goes to the emergency room. And of course, the young doctor there, oh, it's phlebitis, here's a drug. And he takes the drug. But he also took blood, and then the next day or two, the young intern or whoever it was says, no, it wasn't phlebitis, it's something else. Come for another drug. I don't know what other drug they gave him. Meantime, he was better. The flare-up went away. It turned out that 5 years earlier, he had a skiing accident, and he tore a ligament, or he tore something in his leg, and it flared up. And he had no problem until they gave him drugs. He never fully recovered from his lymphoma because they interrupted that healing reaction. That hasn't often happened to us, because usually we can overcome even the damage the doctors do. And they do damage, let's face it. They do damage. Okay? But the healing reactions are the most difficult part of the therapy and scary, because they can be accompanied, read the book, by nausea, sometimes vomiting, sometimes fever, and often depression. People get into crying jags. There's also an emotional release. There is no person in the whole world that hasn't had some emotional shock, trauma, pain, anything. Doesn't exist. So often they go into crying jags. They don't even know why they're crying. But it's part of the healing. The body is getting rid of something. We have a lot of tolerance for even men crying. Doesn't bother us in the least. On the contrary, it's good. Often it's worse for men because they're told, oh, you're a boy and you can't cry, you're not a crybaby, stiff upper lip, and all this kind of nonsense. So it's all eaten inside. It's a bad idea. Let it out. Whew. You'll feel better. It's all part of healing. The emotional healing. And the healing reactions bring it about. Oftentimes the healing reactions are simply depression. And with this depression, you are even more likely to be scared and frightened and go to the hospital and go to emergency room and have some shot or pill. Oh, now I feel better. Yes, sure, temporarily you feel better, but you interfere with the healing. It's not easy. If there are any questions on flare-ups, I'll try to answer them. Yes?
How long do the healing reactions last?
How long do healing reactions last? Another difficult one. Often the first one is very short, because the body is just beginning to heal and is only able to do this much. Then as you strengthen the body and detox and immune system is strengthened, this next one can be longer, can be 2-3 days. Often the third one, the 3.5-month one, can be as long as a week or 10 days, and that's when patients panic. But not necessarily. If there's no cancer, if it's other chronic disease, they're not as ill. They have the heavier reactions earlier. No telling. If they're not doing the therapy perfectly well, or if they have a lot of drug damage, prednisone for other diseases, and all kinds of, let's say, antibiotics or other treatments, and it takes longer, that's possible. Then they panic because they don't get a healing reaction. Okay? But in general, a healing reaction takes only a few days. The third one, the heavy one, can take up to a week or 10 days. And that's it. And then you say, well, how do I know if it's healing reaction? How do I know it's not worsening? Well, the patient should feel better. When it's over, it's over. And then the patient is better. Okay?
What about rheumatoid arthritis?
Rheumatoid arthritis, we have outstandingly good results. Same if they give chemo. No good. Doesn't help. We had a young lady, rheumatoid arthritis, 34 years old, beautiful young woman, had rheumatoid arthritis from the age of 20, 14 years. Among other things, her father was an MD. He was a cardiologist, but it was, MD family. Among other things, she'd had 4 years of gold treatments, highly toxic, kidney damage, and often causes blindness. It's terrible. Did nothing for her. By the time she came to us, every single joint in her body was swollen and painful. All her fingers, her wrists, her arms, her elbows, her spine, her hips, her knees, her feet, her toes, everything. And she was walking, but hardly, and limping, and she had a terrible time. And the painkillers didn't work. 11 days, all the pain was gone. No painkillers. All the swelling and toughness was now soft. There was a little bit of swelling left, but it was soft. She was able to walk and sleep without pain. She was just a whole new person. She was so happy you can't believe. And after about 2.5 weeks, she went home. And this is important. The warning. She went home and she was so happy she could move and she could do things. For 2 years she had wanted to clean out her garage. She was able to move around. What did she do? She cleaned out her garage. Which was only a problem because she didn't take her juices, she sloughed down on her enema, she didn't prepare her foods properly. She wasn't cured. Only under these top conditions of healing that we provided her with a therapy, under those outstanding conditions, her body was functioning. It was not functioning without that help. And the pain came back and the swellings came back. Well, she came back to the hospital. And I made her promise, now stay with it until the body is healed enough so it can maintain the balance. And that's extremely important. When a patient has cancer, very often with the Gerson therapy, especially in the aggressive cancers, the melanomas, often in the lymphomas and the ovarian cancers, those tumors go down very quickly. And the patients feel, and the doctors think, that the patient is cured. Not so. Only under these ultimate conditions that we provide through this treatment, with a constant influx of enzymes and minerals and vitamins, with a constant detoxing, only then can the body function and clear the problem. You stop and it'll come right back because the body is not healed. And that's why we say it takes 2 years of continuing to rebuild, restore, build up the organ systems, the liver, all the essential organs, the immune system, all the defenses, and get all the nutrients and the reserves back into the body. Then it should start to function normally on its own. It should. After chemo, it takes longer. It's more damage done, more poisoning. It takes longer. And I can't tell you how long. It might take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years or more. Maybe for the rest of your life. I don't know.
What is the main reason why a cure doesn't work and the person dies?
Why is the main reason the cure doesn't work? There are a lot of reasons. First reason is they don't do it properly. They cheat. Sometimes they make unknowing mistakes. Second reason is the destruction is too far gone. Third reason is the doctor damaged with the chemo. Fourth reason is some essential organ has been removed and the liver is not restorable. There are a lot of reasons. Sometimes the reason is electric wires too much outside, or fluoridated water, or the neighbor is spraying there a lot with all kinds of chemicals and the patient gets new damage. There are all kinds of reasons. So it's very hard sometimes to find what the reason is. But we do have to remember that we talk almost exclusively of terminally ill patients sent home to die, of which we can still save often 30% or more. Often. And depends on the chemo. No telling. Okay? Yes?
Do you think you can get all the...
Would you speak up, please?
Do you think you can get all the optimum conditions at home that you have at institute? Because it sounds like...
Do I think you can get the optimum conditions set up at home?
Yes.
Well, I should hope so, because people get well.
At home.
Very large number of them get home and get well. There are a lot of things that can go wrong. Pressures come, the well-meaning brother or father or doctor in the family or well-meaning cousin or friend said, oh, you really need to go to a proper doctor. You need proper chemotherapy. You need proper treatment. But I've had proper treatment and there's nothing but getting worse. And all these other people in the doctor's room, they all die. So why should I do that? But the answer to this kind of question is, with your kind of advice, how many people have you cured? No. But when they tell the patient, do this and you should do that and you need more protein, how many people have you cured with this advice? Or else, there's another very plain answer. I have decided to do this because this provides hope and all the other treatments do not. That's what I have decided with my life. If you're my friend, you'll support my decision. If you're not, please don't come. I don't want anything to do with you until I'm well. Okay? Because there are all these books I showed yesterday. An Oxford Don just wrote a book, how he recovered from multiple myeloma. They told him he'd be dead in 6 weeks. He didn't like the chemo, Gerontosh. He calls it living proof. He didn't like what they offered him. With chemo, he thought maybe 2 years. It's 8 years later, he did the Gerson therapy, he's fine. Well, maybe it wasn't multiple myeloma. Now they start, well, maybe. But at the time they said he'd die. He has to have chemo. Were they going to poison him on purpose? Chemo is poison. Chemo is a carcinogen. It's written. Okay. I'm sorry we're not getting along. We are stopping and interrupting and changing the subject, and we are not moving along. Now, if you'd like, we can just talk, and I can answer a lot of questions. If not, I'd like to carry on so that you get the whole instruction, please. The medication. There are certain things that are used on the Gerson therapy as medication. One of the major things, and I already pointed out the importance of the sodium-potassium balance. And the whole problem of tissue damage syndrome due to excess sodium in the tissue. We got to get rid of the sodium. First of all, there is no sodium given at all in the therapy other than what's naturally contained in the vegetables. Plus, since the patients are so severely deficient, it's not enough to give them what's contained in the fruits and vegetables. Dr. Gerson added potassium. And the potassium compound is very important. He made some 300 experiments before he found the right combination. And it's not potassium chloride. For heaven's sakes, don't use potassium chloride pills. They can attach to the small intestine, eat holes in it. They're dangerous. It's not one type of potassium. There are 3 forms of potassium. They're described in the book. Potassium gluconate, acetate, and phosphate. You need the book. Without the book, you cannot use the therapy. It's a 10% solution. It's available here in England. It's available from the Gerson support group. I don't have that address. The Gerson support group. Okay? And that's one of the major things. The other things are also described in the book. We use certain enzymes. Pancreatic enzymes, for instance. Pancreatic enzymes help to digest and break down tumor tissue. Around the turn of the century, there was a Dr. Beard here in England who himself had cancer. He was teaching classes. And he showed them how he was taking handsful of pancreatic enzyme to control his cancer. He didn't cure it, but he controlled it. Pancreatic enzymes help to break down tumor tissue. And since we attack it with the therapy, it's helpful to break it down and digest it and get rid of it with the pancreatic enzymes. By the way, pancreatic enzymes, among other things, digest proteins. But tumor tissue is protein, right? It's your own body tissue, except it's sick tissue. We also use liver, of course, liver capsules and liver extract in order to shore up the liver and help the liver, because the whole key is in a sick, damaged, toxic liver. So we need to shore it up and help it. We do that. We use niacin. It's the only vitamin that we can safely use, other than B12. Niacin helps to open capillaries. Niacin helps circulation, and niacin is important in protein digestion. It's all fits together. It's all given in the book, the quantities and amounts. We use thyroid supplementation together with Lugol, iodine. And I explained how the iodine is so often displaced by our way of living. And displacing iodine is part of damaging to the immune system. So adding a little thyroid and iodine helps to shore up and stimulate the immune system. It's all important. Also, Dr. Gerson explains in the book how the iodine brings enzymes into the tumor tissue, and the tumors don't like enzymes. And it helps to kill tumor tissue. So it's all there together. And then we use the liver extract, intramuscular injections together with B12. Part of the reason is always to help to rebuild the liver, but the B12 is important because it happens, and I've seen photomicrographs, that tumor tissue tends to live on the red blood cells. And that's one reason why cancer patients often are anemic. Of course, another reason is chemotherapy, because it destroys the immune system. I mean, the bone marrow. Okay, so all of it is important, and everything is used to help rebuild and restore and reactivate. No stimulants. And this is extremely important to remember. If you stimulate, like with cortisone, prednisone, or any of these things, stimulants, yes, often make you feel better, and that's why they're so dangerous. Doctors love them because the patients feel better. Patients love them because their symptoms get better with a cortisone, with a prednisone. But what they really do is they drag the last reserves out of the liver until the liver collapses totally. Then what do you do? The doctor says, sorry, that's all we can do for you. It's not healing. It's beating a dying horse. It makes another effort, but it dies. So we don't do that. We pick it up and nourish it and bring it up and heal it. And that's the point. Okay, this is the point of the medication. But again, the medication alone will not do the trick. If you don't eat right and if you don't detoxify the body, it always has to go in the total biochemistry of all the substances and all the activities together. You can't use one. It doesn't work. Are there any questions on the medications? There's also another interesting question. Let's assume you want to do the therapy and you don't really know if you have cancer or not. The beauty of the treatment, it can't hurt you. Chemotherapy can very much hurt you, but the Gerson therapy can't hurt you. Yes?
Have you tried other herbal supplements to support the liver, like the Ayurvedic Liv 52?
The IV?
Ayurvedic Liv 52.
The Ayurvedic?
Which is supposed to help the liver regrow.
We have not used any other liver supplements because our results are so rapid and so excellent. Sometimes we are worried about doing it faster, that the liver can deal with it. Okay? Because you must detoxify. And we already do a very intensive detoxifying. Okay? Yes?
Why doesn't, if you have a healthy liver, why doesn't the healthy liver detoxify naturally? Why do you have to...
A healthy liver does everything you need to do naturally. It's only when liver functions begin to go down. How do you know? How do you know your liver is healthy? Okay, there are a lot of researchers that have shown that if your liver functions at only 40%, you still feel perfectly normal, seem to be everything okay. You don't know. And there are no tests that will show you that your liver functions 100%. If your liver functions 100%, you need nothing. Your body is fine. If there's anything wrong, anything from menstrual cramps, PMS, or from rashes or headaches or constipation or whatever, anything, the fault is the liver. Anything, even a small thing, the fault is the liver. And I strongly believe that there are very few, if any, people who are in perfect health, never have a headache, never constipation, never have a diarrhea, never have a flu or a cold, never have anything at all ever, that they're in really perfect health past the age of 2. Yes?
In this whole process, the gastrointestinal system is extremely important.
The gastrointestinal system is what we use to help replenish the body. Of course it's important.
What I am asking is that people have a habit of, or rather some people have a habit of eating and drinking together.
Of eating and drinking what?
Together. At the same time. They have a...
Eating and drinking together? You can always drink juices with food because it's food. No problem. Drinking water is a problem. Okay? It's no problem. Now, let's go on to the toxins. When we're doing the therapy for a patient, we not only need to make sure that we detoxify the patient very thoroughly, but we also have to make sure that we don't put new poisons in them. And there are a lot more poisons than you're thinking of. You polish a nice piece of furniture, God forbid an antique, and you use some nice furniture polish. It has solvent in it. Solvent is highly toxic. You've heard of aspartame. Most people know it under the name of NutraSweet, Equal, or Spoonful. artificial sugar. It's better than sugar, right? Sugar is bad for you. Aspartame is extremely dangerous. Okay, there is now, the keynote address of the World Environmental Conference was that there was an epidemic of multiple sclerosis and systemic lupus triggered by aspartame, artificial sugar. In multiple sclerosis, when aspartame is discontinued, most of the symptoms disappear. Even vision has returned and hearing has improved in damaged patients. Okay? Then we have the symptoms noted and due to aspartame, which is formaldehyde, a highly toxic substance, formaldehyde. Okay, now those symptoms, among other things, fibromyalgia, spasms, shooting pains, numbness, cramps, vertigo, dizziness, headaches, tinnitus, depression. Enough? There's more. Anxiety attacks, slurred speech, memory loss, neurological symptoms, and it has caused seizures. In the US, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, forbids the pilots and airplanes on duty, forbids the stewardesses to give them artificially sweetened drinks because the pilots could get seizures. But they don't tell the public because they could step on the toes of Monsanto. They're paying them a lot. There are now over 5,000 products containing this supplement, this material, this chemical. Aspartame is not a diet product. It makes you crave carbohydrates and will make you fat. And some doctors, Roberts, stated when he got his patients off aspartame, across the board, they lost 19 to 20 pounds when they stopped taking this artificial material. Parkinson's is on the increase. Nurses report that women are being admitted in their 30s for Alzheimer's. 30s. Because of brain damage and depression and headaches and all of these other things. It's absolutely horrendous. And the problem is that the FDA knows it, the American Food and Drug Administration knows it, but they're being paid such huge sums of money that nobody makes any noise about it. Also, there is a sugar substitute available which is harmless. It's called stevia. Okay. And they don't even allow it to be called a sugar substitute because it might step on the financial toes of Monsanto. It has to be sold as a food supplement. That's not for the Gerson therapy. It's just so you understand where all these poisons come from. My daughter lives in a little village at the top of Lake Como in Italy, where everybody knows each other. And among other things, she chatted, you know. She talked to a guy, happens to be the undertaker. The undertaker tells her that he no longer has to treat, what do I call it, embalm the bodies. They're so toxic with embalming chemicals, you don't have to do anything. You're already embalmed before you die. Yeah, it's not funny. It's pretty serious. And this is what we have to deal with. Now, my father said in his book that it took 18 months to restore people. With all this kind of junk with Monsanto and all of these other food additives that are being used, are you surprised it now takes 2 years? People are more toxic. The air, the soil, the water, everything is more poisoned. People take more drugs, tranquilizers and all these things. The children that were going around shooting up their classmates, they were all on either what's it called? Ritalin, sorry, yes, thank you. On Ritalin or on antidepressants. They're on drugs, they're drugging people and children. Then they're surprised that they act funny. Funny, dangerous. It's very, very terrible, but that's where the toxins are. In the home, you spray because you've seen a couple of bugs or you see a cockroach. Not that I appreciate cockroaches. I don't like them. But there are ways of dealing with them that without poisoning yourself and your patient. You can use boric acid and spread it along. They're not going to die immediately. Give it a few days. But you're not going to die from it either. And you can't use these poisons when there's a patient around. And avoid the fluorides, the carbofluorides, which is the propellants in stuff that's under pressure. What happens is when it's under pressure and you put it in the air, it's tiny little globules now that are spreading through the air, and you inhale it, you get it in your blood system from your lungs. Don't do that. If you must use a cleaner or a cleanser of some sort, put it on a cloth and wipe it wherever you need to clean. Don't spray it all over the place where you inhale it. Always bugs me when strong, powerful men have to have, a push button for shaving cream. What in the world? Why can't they just push a tube? So instead they spoil everything. It's ridiculous. Cosmetics. Cosmetics are toxic. And here again, unless you eat it, if you wouldn't eat it, don't put it on your skin. One of the most dangerous cosmetics is what? Underarm deodorant. Why? The body uses perspiration as its last ability to get rid of toxins. You perspire, good activity, fine. Summer warmth a little bit maybe, fine. You get busy, you do exercise, you perspire, great. Then you say, well, but that doesn't go, and I smell bad. And, well, why do you smell bad? Perspiration does not smell unless you're toxic. So you say, well, that's not sociable. That's not admissible. I can't go out in the world like this. I got to stop this. So what are you really doing? The body's last desperate attempt to get rid of toxins through perspiration. What is the normal way of detoxifying? Through the liver and the feces, through the kidneys and the urine, through the breathing, you're breathing out carbon dioxide and so on. But when everything is blocked and the liver is overloaded and the kidneys are overloaded and the body tries to get rid of things through perspiration, you say, oh, nobody, you can't do that to me. It's not sociable. And you block it, you stop it. So what are you doing? You're pushing these toxins right back into the lymphatics, right back into the breast. Then you're surprised there's breast cancer. It's a contributing factor. I'm not saying it's the only thing. In men, it's a different story. Breast cancer in men is rapidly increasing. It's now 1% of female. And in men, it's particularly aggressive. But Madison Avenue sells you, you can't, you've got to have you're not properly groomed unless you have on some antiperspirant or something. Now you go into a health food store and they sell you some organic antiperspirants or some stick or something. None of it is any good. None, not one. And if it's a mineral stick, why does it work? It's because it blocks something, it stops something. You can't use ointments or creams or minerals or anything underarm except a little soap and water or maybe a little vinegar water. And then you say, yes, but I smell. What's my answer? First of all, eat right, and secondly, take a coffee enema and you won't smell. You get rid of these toxins the proper way, the effective way. Perspiration isn't very effective. Because you also know that in many cases, when people are very ill and their bodies are very toxic, they have night sweats. What's night sweats? At total rest, the body is able to get rid of some of this junk. Okay? And the body tries very hard. And then you get very upset about it. But you don't understand, and doctors don't understand, and they don't understand detoxifying. So you either suffer through it, or your doctor gives you something to try to stop it. Don't stop it. When your body is trying to help you, don't stop it. Help it. Okay, so don't stop perspiration under any circumstances. Now I'd like to talk to you a little bit. Oh, wait a minute. Are there any questions on cosmetics and poisons? Yes.
What do you put on your skin, on your face?
What do I put on my face? Soap and water. Sorry.
There's been quite a lot said about the properties of seaweed with regards to detoxification.
Seaweed?
Seaweed, just general seaweed.
What's in seaweed? All sea products should be avoided. Sodium. No. Yes. Essiac? We have tried and tried and tried to use Essiac. We have not found it to be effective at all. It's not harmful. If you'd like to take it, I wouldn't fight it, but we haven't found it to be of much value. I'm sorry.
Only on cancer patients.
Pardon me?
Only on sick people.
On sick people, on cancer patients, yes. Okay, yes.
Soap. Sorry. Soap. What soap do you use?
What soap do we use? Always soap that has no additives. Usually the cheapest is best. No antiperspirant, no anti-this, no anti-that. Just cheap and simple.
Soap? Too oily?
Well, soap is always made from fat. Just the simplest soap you can find, yes.
I have two questions. One, what do you think of apricot kernels?
I think very little of apricot kernels. Okay, they're supposed to have Laetrile. But in order to get pharmaceutically effective doses of apricot seeds, Laetrile, you would need to eat a pound or two. You get much too much oils and the flesh of the nuts and so on. It's a no-no. I'd like to talk to you about ozone and peroxide. Now that is quite an interesting situation. It happens that either ozone or peroxide, they're more or less similar. Okay, all of you know that water is H2O. Two H's and one O, right? That's water. Okay? Okay, now, if you add one extra O, and what have you got? Now you have H2O2, and that's peroxide, right? But the interesting thing is that while oxygen has two valences and is usually attached with two bonds, for instance, the plain oxygen gas that we're breathing all day long, okay, has the two oxygen, but they're connected with a double bond. And that's a pretty solid material that doesn't break down easily. Same with water. It's a very solid material, doesn't break down easily. Now you add another O, and instead of oxygen, you have ozone. Now you have the similar situation. In both cases, this additional oxygen is attached with a single bond. Same here, single bond. And because it's attached with a single bond, it comes off easy. And it's very active, and it's extremely valuable. And that's what we use. We use a lot of the hydrogen peroxide. And what it does, okay, so we get that O radical. Yes, and it is a free radical, but it has wonderful capabilities. It does four things. I don't know if I can get them all on here. Number one, it kills germs and viruses. Okay? Very good. And number 2, it kills tumor tissue, cancer. Number 3, it oxygenates the bloodstream. Now, sometimes they use hyperbaric oxygen chambers to pressure extra oxygen into the blood, but it's oxygen, it's not ozone. And the minute you get out of the chamber, very quickly you lose this extra oxygen, and it's the way it was. Not with the ozone. That extra ozone is much more capable of staying in the blood, and you still find it 72 hours later. So this is number 3. It ozonates the blood. Therefore, makes it more active. And number 4, because it's a free radical, it combines with other free radicals and makes toxic free radicals into excretable compounds. Okay? So it combines with free radicals. Therefore, this whole thing, this H2O2 and also ozone, is very valuable material. We use the peroxide. We give every patient when they come a bottle of peroxide to rub on their bodies every day, at least once, preferably twice. Because, like every other thing you put on your skin, it's absorbed right into the bloodstream, and right away, this extra oxygen radical goes into the bloodstream. And it helps to kill germs and viruses, and it helps to kill tumor tissue, and it helps to oxygenate and ozonate the blood, and it helps to combine with free radicals. Very valuable. Okay? Now, ozone can also be used, but it's a little more difficult. For ozone, you need a room ozone generator, which is very useful, but it's a little extra machine. It happens that peroxide is very cheap. Very cheap, very effective, very useful. Guess what Orthodox doctors think of it? No good. It's too cheap. Okay?
Do you have it on the skull as well? Because we were talking about how the skull absorbs.
Yeah, why do you want to put it on your hair? You're going to bleach it halfways. Don't try. Doesn't work. Okay? So, very, very valuable. And anything like this, which is harmless, does only good, helps the patient, and doesn't just have to be cancer. How about germs and viruses? What about chronic fatigue? What about all the other problems? What about the free radicals? What about the toxins? Yes. Yes, I know. You can put ozone in the bloodstream. I've had those treatments. But just for people to do at home, this is so easy. Okay? This is so easy, and they can carry on at home. They can take care of the patient, and it helps, and it's very useful. There are ways of putting the ozone into the bloodstream. I've had those treatments. Before we give anything to a patient, it's me first. You ever hear an oncologist say that for chemo? Wonder why? Because the juice is truly satisfying. And when it's organic food, the body is truly satisfied. Patients lose their craving. They lose craving for cigarettes. They lose craving, sometimes just the companions who eat the proper food, lose craving for sweets. They don't have to go into the stores anymore and buy candies and cookies and ice creams and so on. They lose craving. And as a result, we also do extremely well with drug addiction. Heavy drugs, street drugs, we have been able to overcome in a matter of 72 hours without withdrawal problems. Because first of all, with the juices every hour, the craving goes away. And then when the withdrawal comes, coffee enema takes care of the withdrawal problem. The only problem we have with such patients anymore is at night, when at 10 o'clock they take their last enema and go to sleep. Now they get no more juices, they get no more enemas, they start to have heavy dreams. They get these black dreams, and they wake up in terror and with you know, very serious problems. At that time, they take a night enema, so what? They can't sleep anyway. So at 2, 3 o'clock, they eat a piece of fruit, or they have some stewed fruit or some applesauce to build up a little bit of their blood sugar, and they take an extra enema, and they go back to sleep. No withdrawal, no problem. We have clearly, completely gotten rid of drug addiction in a matter of 72 hours.
What about nicotine?
How about
Nicotine?
nicotine? 24 hours. Let me show you one other thing that I didn't get around to. Very interesting. Okay. This is a dark field, high power view of normal non-aggregation red blood cells 6 hours after a low-fat meat. These are the red blood cells floating freely around in the blood. There's a white blood cell. Okay, they're floating freely around, and since they have to pick up oxygen to carry it to all the tissues, they've got to be able to float around. They have a lot of surface that way. This is the red blood cell aggregation and rouleau formation 6 hours after a high-fat meal. A high-fat meal. What happens? The red blood cells all congregate and form these rouleaus. They're like penny rolls. They form rouleaus, and you can see that two things happen. First of all, their surface is not as great, therefore they can't carry as much oxygen. Secondly, these rouleaus can't get through the capillaries. They're very, very tiny, and when they're all bunched together, they can't get through and deliver the oxygen, so you get tired and you get sleepy, and your body isn't functioning properly. Just a fat meal, and that's 6 hours after. Meantime, you're eating another fat meal.
What sort of fat?
Every kind of fat, fried and butter and animal fat, beef and whole milk and cheese and meat and fried foods and everything.
Excuse me, what about osteoporosis?
Osteoporosis is caused by milk drinking and meat eating. Because what happens is with animal proteins, the phosphoric acid in the blood goes up, you get acid, and the body has to neutralize it. And no drug, no pills of calcium, thank you, no pills and no neutralization is possible, except the blood has to take it out of the bones.
The person I'm thinking of is a vegan.
I'm vegan, I take no calcium, I take no HRT, no hormone replacement, I have no osteoporosis, I'm 80. Okay? That's the key. It's all the same thing. By the way, this is your best source of calcium, because there's no way that any one single mineral will work. It takes calcium, magnesium, zinc, and all the combination, plus the enzymes to lodge it properly in the bones. And no drug and no pill is going to do it. Okay, yes?
I've had success with people with terminal brain cancer, with brain tumors.
We've had patients recover from brain tumors, yes. It's tough, but yes. Why are brain tumors more difficult? Because very often in the healing process, you get an additional inflammation fluid around the tumor, which brings in inflammatory trait that helps to break down tissue. When you get this inflammation in the brain, you get pressure, sometimes seizures. Then you get trouble. Okay? But it can be done. It's been done. Yes. Last question.
What do you think about eating millet, quinoa?
What do I think about?
Eating millet, quinoa, rice, brown rice.
Dr. Gerson allowed brown rice once a week. It's harder to digest than potatoes. It's not as good. And the other grains are not as good, not as valuable. It's not the best thing in the world to use grains. Okay? They're better foods than grains.
Any comments on HIV?
We have done very well with HIV. I don't like to discuss it because we've only had 2 cases. Mexico doesn't allow HIV to be treated, doesn't allow those patients into the country. Result, we haven't had a chance. But those that came and did the therapy at home on their own did very well because obviously we increase in the immune system. No problem.